Sitting in a quiet and relaxed atmosphere, I withdraw my attention away from my physical limbs and senses. I focus my thoughts on the point at the center of the forehead, I am a star radiating light. I find deep peace and contentment within. I meet my Divine Father in the land beyond sound and movement. The only things that exist are the feelings in my heart. It is my open heart that my Divine Father reads. He knows what it is. I truly enjoy this meeting with my Divine Father, the source of my constant sustenance, in which honesty, cleanliness, and clarity in my mind are present. He fulfills my deepest needs and wishes as the source of my constant sustenance in many ways, through many relationships. As my Father, He gives me love and understanding, which enables me to love and understand others despite their limitations. As His child, I have the spiritual birthright to His inheritance, the unlimited treasure store of all His perfect virtues and powers. As my mother, I also experience the sweetness and comfort that I, the soul, can rest in tenderness and care in the world of chaos and uncertainties. As my friend, I can share my deepest thoughts, hopes, and even my doubts and problems, for there is nothing for me to hide from a true friend. I can enjoy a heart-to-heart conversation at any time. I wish in any place, for the friend is always there. As my teacher, He fills me with the truth. He answers every questions, advice for every need, revealing to me the secrets of time and eternity, so that the meaning of my life becomes so clean, from I have found the perfect teacher, the source of all truth. He is also my liberator and guide, freeing the self from all sorrows and sufferings, guiding me along the path to freedom and happiness. He is also the comforter of my heart. With Him, the search for true love ends, and the experience of contentment and completeness begins. Having the experience of all this relationship with my Divine Father provides me with everything I need, fulfilling all my pure desires and dreams, the ultimate source of constant sustenance. Behind every thought and actions of His pure love, and only wish to bring benefit to the soul, to uplift and to purify me. My Divine Father's love is unlimited and endless. Om Shanti.
Hello and good afternoon once again. Good afternoon for us here in Asia and those out there in Europe. Good morning. From the other parts of the world, good evening and good day. Good. Everything is good today for all of us. Now I welcome you once again to our special The Inner Space Saturday conversation. Special because tonight we will be having someone who has given us so much in terms of clarity, in terms of upliftment in knowledge. Anyway, before I start with it, let me welcome those who are in the Zoom right now. We have our translators from the different countries. Now I see Sister Petra here would be doing German translation for us. We also have Sister Solange, who's doing the translation for French. And we have also Sister Patricia doing Portuguese translation. And we have two who's doing also Spanish. We have Brother Enrique and Sister Eva. Welcome to everyone. And let's have a beautiful, beautiful moment this time as we all share this precious moment of reawakening and crystallizing whatever we have been thinking in this past few days. So those who are also in the Facebook right now, and there are a lot of them, I see it. I would like also to give welcome to all of you. Welcome again to our special Saturday Inner Space conversation. So 2 months ago, I guess, if you would recall, that was May 27, we had 4-hour program titled as The Best Is Yet to Come. And we were saying anything really can happen, but the best is yet to come, as we all had been summed up with our speaker then, who gave us why it's it that the best is yet to come. And today we continue with the best is yet to come with the title right now, which is What's Next? I think for all of us, we have had different experiences in our lives, and we have been through roller coasters, and sometimes we get into crossroads also. A lot of times we exactly do not know just how to get into things. But what's next? Every so often we find ourselves at this crossroads, a powerful moment when we have full freedom to choose. You know, those times when it's just so difficult, challenges are there, and we cannot just make a decision. However, when we look into our hearts and listen to that voice that indicates the right way, even though it may be very different from the road we have traveled so far. So for today, we have once again a beautiful soul who would share her thoughts on this particular topic. What's next? I think most of us know her already, as we have been following her in YouTube, have been following her daily Morley notes. And of course, for all of us, we have found her to be one who is just different and not very common among the rest, and someone who I would say is one of a kind, simply because she is so courageous, she's so brilliant, and she makes researches even up to this time. And at her age, she swings like, there's no age that really would bring her into a stoppage. All of us know that Sister Denise Lawrence has been as a Raja Yogi for over 50 years now. And for those 50 years, that's, I think, must have been 2/3 of her lifetime. And when I saw her first, when she was starting at San Francisco, USA, she was that very petite young lady who already had that power to really attract souls, simply because her words were coming from the heart and knowledge was really pouring out from her lips, like, so inspired and just so enthusiastic to share herself and what she has learned in her Raj Yoga. So until now, she is a much sought speaker, and she has been so busy. I've never found her doing nothing, although her nothing is something where she does a lot of other things too. And I'm sure all of us who are there listening right now, right from this very start, have seen how she has been able to really crystallize things and make things clearer to all of us. So without further ado, may I now call on our beloved sister, Denise Lawrence, at this point. Sister Denise, please come in.
Hello. Thank you so much for that very kind introduction, Sister Ellen. It is really a great pleasure. I have a deep connection with the Philippines since years and years and years. So it's wonderful to be with you all this afternoon. Morning for me, afternoon for you. So what is next? I was remembering when you were talking about my introduction, and you mentioned about 50 years of spiritual practice. And in India, they say that you actually do not become a real Raj Yogi until you have been practicing for 50 years. So maybe I'm crossing a threshold that is kind of known. I think what I would like to talk about is how much the circumstances of the present time are calling upon all of us, whether we have been in spiritual practice for a long time or a short time, or whether we are not in this particular spiritual practice, but everyone is on a journey and everyone is a spiritual being. And so the component of spirituality within individuals is awakening, I think, very powerfully. I think that someone who has been doing a spiritual practice for a long time is being prepared for something, and you may not know what it is, but a time comes when whatever you are prepared for presents itself to you and says, okay, it's time now. You have to shift into this next state and condition and perform your task that you have been prepared for. And I think there may be quite a few people who feel something like this. I certainly do. What we're also seeing, I'm sure everybody pays attention to the news, and even if you can't get much news, there's many things on social media and internet where you can see that things in terms of nature are shifting very dramatically, actually. Politically, things are becoming quite intense in different parts of the world. And so this feeling of that we are about to enter into a phase of very tangible change. Big change has been talked about for a long, long time. And those who have been aware about it have been following it, watching it externally and also internally, and seeing, okay, so now what is going on? Because I think this word, what's next, is a little bit similar to the question, what is going on? And you may have inside your being every so often, when you are sitting quiet, maybe being a bit contemplative and feeling the energies of the world, the changes, the intensification of things, you may be asking yourself, I really want to know what's going on. What is going on? And this is a kind of invocation that you are saying to the universe, okay, now let me know what's going on, because I need to know. And that may be because you are called to participate. Of course, all of us are participants in history, but when there is a very big change in the world, then you are part of it, no matter what. You can be in the thick of it or on the periphery, but you are part of it, no matter what. So looking at this question a little more closely, what's next? I think that what's next is going to be different for different individuals. Definitely there are big changes, big shifts happening. You may change your location. There are many people who are finding themselves through different reasons, maybe as refugees, maybe just changing your place, but there is some kind of geographical change that is happening for many people. And when you change geographically, you're also changing relationships, you're changing circumstances. You may be changing to a very different part of the planet where the weather is different, the time zone is different, and so on, which means that some part of your destiny is starting up and another part of your destiny is finished. And so you go to another place for a different aspect of your destiny. And it may also be that you don't change geographically, but you change relationships. You may leave a relationship, you may begin a relationship, you may leave one job, begin a different job, you may be out of a job and suddenly in a job, or in a job and suddenly out of a job. But my feeling is that a lot of people are experiencing quite enormous changes, and these changes demand something from the self, from yourself, from myself. And so I think one very important aspect of considering this question, what's next, is how well have I been prepared? How well have I prepared myself for an unknown eventuality, which may be right here? So looking at the self means looking at your power. And I have mentioned a few times about this idea of coming into your power. So I think what's next is everything to do with coming into your power. And maybe what has gone on so far is the process of preparing yourself for emerging as the empowered individual. For some people, it means going through a healing. I think everyone has been affected by trauma in this life, historical trauma, because so many people have passed through war, or their parents or grandparents have passed through war, and there is a residual trauma that carries into you. And maybe this is a time when all of that has been worked through, and you are emerging like the proverbial butterfly from the cocoon. To me, many years of spiritual practice is comparable to being in a cocoon where there is a metamorphosis that happens. And a cocoon is a circumstance that you may be in for a long time, but there is nothing that is forever. This is one of the great sayings of the Bhagavad Gita, that whatever the circumstances are that you are in, they will finish and it will become something else. So I think also that many of us may be emerging from a cocoon, and you go into the cocoon as a caterpillar and you come out as a butterfly, which looks extremely different from the caterpillar. And what has been going on while you have been in the cocoon, or while you have been getting prepared, is changes that are very deep, that are very extraordinary, that change your sense of self, that change your quality as a human being. I think it is also like a purging, a development, a process of coming to terms with the things that have happened, people that have been in your life. And so it's a time for pausing also. If you think about the butterfly who comes out of the cocoon, there is a few minutes where the butterfly dries his wings, because you cannot fly with wet wings. And I remember one time I took a beautiful butterfly out of some water that it had fallen into, and it was sitting on my fingers, drying its wings. And after a little while, it was able to fly. And so it went off to the next part of its destiny. But I think also for us, when we are in this question of what's next, you find yourself in a new circumstance, a new place, a new situation, where all kinds of possibilities are there. So you're standing at a crossroads, drying your wings, and it's not just 4 directions, as in a normal crossroads, but you may be having many, many directions that you could take. And you need to sit with yourself and dry off your wings and try to feel a sense of which road is the right road. And this is intuitive. I think that especially when you are on the edge of something new and whatever has been before is no longer there, you cannot use your normal processes of decision making, but you go to a deeper place within yourself and you look at your intuition and your deep inner sense. Some people may find this something like you're making contact with your destiny, and your destiny is letting you know what's next, and you have to answer the call. Some people, they have a destiny that's waiting for them, and they may avoid it, or it may be blocked from them, from external forces that is also there. Generally speaking, you hear about people afraid to take the next step. And then the moment of being at the crossroads is a moment of putting aside that fear and taking the next step. I believe very much in the value of taking a risk, not a reckless risk, definitely a calculated risk, but a risk, because a risk means you leap off the side of a mountain, as it were, figuratively, not physically necessarily, but you go into unknown territory and you take a risk because you don't know the terrain and you don't know what is next, but you know that you have to go in this particular way. But sometimes your forward movement has been blocked by others. You may want to do something that is completely different from what your family considers is right for you. And you may be blocked because of old values, old attitudes, social attitudes that are kind of no longer current. And you may be some kind of a vanguard person who has some form of leadership function into a new way of being, because the whole world is in the throes of change. And so there have to be someone or some people who take a step in an unusual direction and they say, this is the way to go. And other people say, no, we can't go that way. That's new, that's different. We can't do anything different. So there are definitely forces in these moments of big change which strive to keep everything in the status quo and to prevent change. But a change is a force, change is an energy that is much, much greater than any individuals who might decide to try to prevent it. The force of change is like a tsunami, a volcano, a huge flare from the sun. There is absolutely nothing that anyone can do about it. It is much bigger than anything. And when change happens, change happens. And so then you have to see, okay, you may be dealing with internal change, but also external change. So external change means you have to adapt to it. You have to be very flexible and willing to completely change your sense of identity. And usually there are people who will do this very, very slowly, in a kind of evolutionary way. And there are others who will answer the call very fast, and they will make drastic and dramatic changes which cause the people around them to be aghast and do everything to restore them to what they were before. But even if you make a drastic change, you still have to adapt to it. It's like when there's an undersea volcano and it erupts and creates a new island, that's very dramatic and drastic. A new island appears in the middle of the ocean. But then there has to be a process of erosion that takes place. And it's much slower than the drastic appearance of the island, but it's nevertheless quite quick. And then it slows down and you get the normal speed of change that happens in the normal world. So, I mean, we're all used to the normal world where everything changes slowly, and every so often it's a little bit abrupt, but it's not cataclysmic. But when you are in a time of great change, which has been anticipated for a long, long time, but which hasn't arrived, then sometimes people stop anticipating it, or they revert back to the usual situation. They may be in denial. But when the forces of change start to rumble a little loud and shift things around a little abruptly, people say, what's going on? So you have this word, what's going on, together with the word, what's next. And what's going on is a word that you express when you feel that the things that are happening around you are not in the normal scheme of things. And, in terms of climate change, it's been pretty intense this last couple of years. And this year is very intense. In every part of the world, there is big heat, big rain, earthquakes, volcanoes, and people are saying, what's going on? And what that means is this is an indicator of maybe something bigger that you can feel, maybe subconsciously, but that makes you use this expression, what's going on? Because there is a certain amount of uncertainty. You feel you're entering into unknown territory. You may or may not be prepared for it. I think most people are not. But there are a lot of people who have been developing themselves spiritually, who've been feeling the need to look at their spiritual life, who want to meditate, who want to study, who want to understand the angle of what's going on, not just from a material point of view, but also from a spiritual point of view, because the spiritual refers to the inner self, which is also the real self, the inside, the immortal, the spirit, the soul. And, when there is very drastic change, there may be an effect on the body. You may even leave the body. But if you are really thinking about yourself in terms of the self as a soul, then passing through big change doesn't mean that you cease to exist. You may go through a very big change of body, but you will not cease to exist. And there are many people who have lost their lives in the natural calamities that have been going on. Not huge numbers, but the largest numbers of deaths are connected with people doing risky journeys, like as a refugee or in a part of the world where there's war going on. So there's a lot of big traumatic change happening. People are suddenly ejected from their countries, their houses are carried away by a storm, and then it gets too hot or too cold. And so general life becomes very difficult, and you're not ready for it. You don't know how to manage it. And this is why I think the matter of spiritual practice is really important. And for someone who's been doing spiritual practice for a long time, it's a time when you need to go deep inside and see, okay, well, I've been doing this practice for a long, long time. How am I doing? Try to evaluate your own state. How strong have you become? How flexible have you become? Have you become free from false ego? Have you understood yourself in such a way that you can let go of prejudices that may have been part of your upbringing? Are you free from gender bias, religious prejudice, race prejudice? Because when the world is changing, then all of these structures that are based on social attitudes that keep the society a certain way, it may not necessarily be the best way, but it's the way it has been for a long time. And maybe there are big social changes that are about to come. And all of these things are asking us to go back to the essence of what it means to be a human being, and our relationship with each other, our relationship with the forces of nature, because they're definitely making themselves felt and known. We've lived in a world where it's always assumed that the human being is the master of nature and dominates nature. But then we come to a point where nature says, okay, I have been providing you with everything you need for food, for shelter, for a stable environment, and so on. But you have taken more than you need. You have caused damage. You have caused damage to each other because you became greedy or arrogant or whatever. And so now I will show you who's in charge. And that may come as a bit of a shock to those who thought that they can dominate the forces of nature and that they don't need to make the effort to live in balance and harmony with nature. So this is a big change. There are people, I think probably minority of people, for whom these things are really important, and such people are considered a bit wacky. But when nature says, I will show you who's in charge, then those who haven't paid attention will find themselves much more destabilized than those who have paid attention. then also when you have questions like what's going on and what's next, whenever humanity is completely unable to come up with an answer, especially when there is difficulty, hardship, uncertainty, there's a tendency to turn the attention to God, to a higher power, to a higher energy, and look for answers there. And I think that there's also quite a lot more of this going on at the moment. And when you do that, of course, you do it in the context of the society and religion and culture that you are familiar with. And one of the things that we are very aware about in the world today with the vast human population is that cultures are butting up against each other. There is clash of culture. There's clash of religion. There is a reduced ability to live in harmony with those who have different beliefs and different practices. And the group, which is the dominant group in any particular area, wants to assert that they are the dominant one, and they want to prevent any other one from taking any kind of position or coming into any kind of power, because resources are getting less, space is getting less, access to food, water, electricity, other kinds of power sources like gasoline and so on, these are getting less available. And so people say, what's going on? And then as you start to get a good idea of what's going on, then you say, okay, what's next? And you will make some sort of scenario and project forward that if things carry on like this, what's going to happen? And the scenarios that people come up with are not good. When the movement of the winds and the waters of the ocean are no longer going how they have been for thousands of years, then it means all of a sudden a warm place becomes a cold place, a dry place becomes a wet place, and you do not know how to handle it. And so you start to look for answers in the spiritual realm. And this, I think, is very important, not necessarily because of getting answers, but also because of coming in contact with the real self, the deep inner self, and bringing one's external self together with the internal self is a process of becoming whole and integrated. And that can be very exacting, it can be very big in someone's experience. If you have been paying attention to your inner life for a long time, then it's normal, it's a smooth transition because you're already there. But for people who've been denying it, who've been totally just thinking of being materialistic, and they want money and comfort and name and fame and glory and all these things, now all of a sudden that doesn't work anymore. And when things don't work anymore, well, you have to go back to the beginnings and back to the drawing board, as they say, and really think about who you are, what you want to do, because what's next is different. So that means being willing to live in a world that is different, being willing to live in a way that is different. Maybe you need to simplify your life. Maybe you need to give more attention to your relationships with others, your relationship with yourself. There is a lot more interdependence than you may have thought. You need to do your bit. You cannot be just a taker. You cannot just impose your views if they aren't in balance and harmony with the way the world is. And so I think that we're in this situation of what's going on and what's next, both of these words together. And we need to kind of stop, like the butterfly, just stop. And okay, you're out of the cocoon of ignorance or denial or just not understanding what the world is, and assuming that it's the way you want it to be, but how you want it to be and how it is may not be the same thing. So you come out of that and you sit on the branch next to your opened up cocoon and have a look and see what are the roads that are opening up in front of you before you take off and fly in a particular direction. So while you're sitting drying your wings, and the first thing you do is to come to terms with your new identity, because you went in as a caterpillar and now you're a butterfly, and that's different. You've got wings, you've got legs, you've got a different kind of body, and you're not just eating and eating and eating. A materialist is just a consumer, but the butterfly drinks nectar from flowers and doesn't go around eating all the leaves, but the butterfly flies and has a very short period of existence in most cases. Some butterflies, they need to migrate and travel very far, so they have great strength that a caterpillar doesn't have. So you need to sit with your new sense of identity and come to terms with it, get used to it, and what are your new capabilities and capacities as you find the new me. And the old me has fallen away, and you can't reassume the old body or the old self. You cannot become a chrysalis after you've come out of it. You cannot become a caterpillar. That's over, that's gone. And now you have to be what you are. And whatever the protection of the chrysalis or the comfort of the caterpillar who just chomps, eats all day, doesn't really know anything other than being a consumer. Whereas the butterfly flies, is in the air, dancing, being beautiful, and zooming around in a manner that is unusual. You see if you can catch a butterfly is not so easy, because they fly in all sorts of different directions that are not the way you normally think. So your thinking has changed. How you do things, why you do things is changing. So sitting with your new identity means that gradually you get a sense of, okay, who am I? And the next question comes, what will I do? Because we're always in action. And there are times for pauses like this. Who am I? You pause to get a sense of who you have become. But then the next question is, okay, what will I do? And I think this is also what's next is about for each and every individual is what will I do in view of the changes in me, in view of the changes in circumstances, in view of the fact that you see a larger picture and the butterfly flies in the air and the caterpillar is just sitting on a leaf chomping away. And so the perspective of the butterfly is much larger because he's in the air and he sees a much bigger horizon. So I think what's next is very much to do with seeing the bigger picture of the world and taking into consideration things that you thought maybe are nothing to do with you, but now you understand that you are part and parcel of a greater whole. And this requires something different of you. So sitting, getting a sense of your identity also means getting a sense of your purpose, a sense of your role. Maybe your values will change. So all that needs for you to sit and think while your wings are drying and you're getting ready for your flight into a world where you see everything from a higher perspective. So I think I will stop now and hand it back to Sister Ellen, and you may have some questions. And let's think about these things for a minute.
Thank you very much, Sister Denise. It's been really a beautiful afternoon listening to you. What's next? Of course, before that, we have to know what's really going on. And we're really just in that question right now. What's going on? And what do I do is the action plan. That's really so, I mean, this makes things clearer to us right now, not just on what is next, but what is it that I can do. And the butterfly flying up in the air really is something that is inspirational. But before we go to our question and answer portion, I would like to ask to give a minute as we will give a prelude to our question and answer, Sister Denise, with Golden Drops coming in right now. Much for that 1 minute interlude on consciously creating a beautiful world. And right now, just how would that be with these dramatic changes that's happening right now in the world? To give us and to moderate us to the question and answer, I would like now to ask our partner here in Inner Space, Sister Tensi Villa. Sister Tensi has been with Inner Space for quite some time, about 5 years now, and she has helped so much support the growth of Inner Space. Sister Tensi, please come over.
Thank you, Sister Ellen. Good afternoon, Sister.
Good afternoon.
And our partners all over the world. Hello. Sister, thank you very much for giving us that beautiful metaphor of the butterfly, starting from the cocoon up to the time when it spreads its wings to enjoy the world. Thank you for that, Sister. But it really has set us thinking, what shall we do when we become that beautiful butterfly? And what do we want to see? What's next? Sister, the first question is not a question. It is a request of you. Please expand on how to draw out our spiritual power.
Well, Sister Tensi, thank you for your words. The way I see things is that over the course of time is a big circle, and time means deterioration, but it also means eternity and immortality. So something has to happen in the wheel of time for it to be regenerated so that our immortality can be perpetuated. And this is something that is very mysterious, but I think something that we are slowly coming to understand. And that is that the regeneration of the world, the regeneration of the soul is something that occurs at the time of massive change. And this means that whenever we encounter a time of massive change, it's also a signal for us to turn within and go deep. Because when we go very deep inside, then we touch our own spirit and we become aware that, I, the spirit, have become depleted and I need to get restored. And that means that the energy of the soul has to be restored from another source. You cannot restore yourself. If you are empty, you cannot fill up, because filling up comes from somewhere that's full. And this is where I think that what happens when you go deep within and you go, sometimes, certainly my experience, when you're looking for this kind of source that can replenish you, then you go outside the normal world, outside the known world, and that's when you encounter a presence that is above and beyond the material world, and this is your source. It is from here that you replenish yourself. And so people call this, sometimes they call it energy, or they call it God, or they call it the universe, or there are different names for this that people have applied. And I will call it God because for me, this is not just an energy, but this is a being. And this is not a human being, but this is a being. And this is a being that contains the amount of energy, or more than enough energy, to replenish all the depleted energy of all souls and of matter itself. So this is a huge, gigantic, extraordinary power. And it's often compared with the sun. I was speaking to a friend of mine yesterday about the mass of the sun, which is much, much greater than the mass of the planets. And it is the great source of energy for this world and the whole universe. So this is a time when we need to make contact with something greater than ourselves to open up the conduit that allows us to draw that energy into ourselves. And this needs to be our focus of attention, our highest priority, actually. And while we're doing that, we have to take care of all the things of basic life, but our ambitions, our priority, our focus of attention needs to be on drawing this power into the self, to clean the self, to empower the self, to restore the self to the original condition. And I think this is what spirituality and meditation are all about.
Thank you, sister. You have just told us that we have to look deeply into that inner space we have been gifted with. There's a question from Zoom, sister. This is again about the butterfly. A butterfly has a short life. Is this for all butterflies, meaning us? What about Daddy Junkie?
Well, what is long, what is short in the context of eternity and immortality? Life is short. And definitely from a biological point of view, the butterfly's life is short, but there are, I'm very aware of the monarch butterflies, there's red and black butterflies that migrate, and they fly thousands of miles in a big cloud of butterflies, just like migratory birds. They migrate together because when you do it together, you become one and you fly with the thermal winds and all of this. These journeys are known only to the butterflies and the birds. But other butterflies, they live for only one day. And so the most important thing they must do is reproduce and lay their eggs so that the next generation can come along. And so I suppose from that analogy, there are some of us who will have a short period of clarity and awareness, and others who will have a longer period. But whatever is our lifespan of awareness, we must not waste it. We must use it wisely.
Yes, sister, thank you. Then another question, sister. What is false ego? What do we do to overcome or integrate it?
A false ego is to believe that you are something that you're not. And so it's not a matter of integrating it, because what you want is for that false sense of self to die. And that is sometimes called ego death. And that's very difficult. In psychology, they do talk about ego death as a very important moment of personal development in an individual's life. And, in spiritual practice, we hear about how ego is a bad thing and you have to conquer it. And, the more you will try to crash and bang ego and smash it, the more it gets bigger. So that is not the way. What I think is needed is you have to see what is false about your sense of identity. And so the first, I think this is also connected with prejudices, because the prejudices that cause damage in this world are things to do with gender bias, race bias, religious bias, all of these things where you say, I am my body, I am my gender, I am my religion, I am my wealth, I am my position in my job or my position in society. All of that is not real because it can be taken away any second. And the false ego is a problem because you operate as if it were true, which means that the actions that you do, which is also called your karma, will be negative. And when you do negative karma, then you have to pay, and you pay in the form of suffering. And you may cause a lot of other people to suffer as well. So then you have to pay for that. So it's very expensive to get it wrong. And so I think that it's partly to do with, sitting with yourself and being serious with yourself about what's important in life and what life is. And because there's not that much knowledge about it, I think study is a very important matter. When you meditate, when you do really deep, heavy-duty meditation, which is only a few people will do that, but if you do that, it will cause all of your falseness to erupt. That means it comes, and all these things, they live in your subconscious. So it'll cause it to erupt and come into your conscious mind, and it can disturb you a lot. But this is known as a kind of purging of the impurities in the soul. And false ego is an impurity in the soul, which needs to be ejected. And so meditation can do that. Loss, pain, suffering, shock, these also can do this. And so, but it's difficult for an individual to manage while this process is going on. So one thing is to hear about it, the ego death, and then slowly you start to work with it, because if you do it too abruptly, you may not be able to manage it. So it's better to do it slowly.
Sister, from Zoom again, how can I prove being in contact with him while Brahma has to be in between, as it seems to be said in today's Murli?
The reason for this is, like in any religion, like in Christianity, it is said through Jesus Christ. In Islam, they speak about God, Allah, but then they say Muhammad is his prophet. And so it's very normal for people to go through the founder of their religion or someone like this, because very, very few people have the subtlety of consciousness to be able to go direct and be on track. It's very, very easy to get off track. And so this is why.
Oh, thank you, sister. From Zoom, if we need 50 years to become a real Raja Yogi, what change do we have if we have only started meditating a few years?
Well, I think don't worry about the 50 years. It's just something that is said, it's there in the sayings and aphorisms. And I think the reason for it is that do not imagine that if you have studied spirituality for just the short period of time, that you can understand everything in a short period of time. So you can consider 50 years to be just like a kind of a round figure for a long period of time. So you don't know how long you are going to continue with your spiritual practice, and you are somewhere in the middle of it. So it's basically an idea that tells you that you haven't understood everything yet. You still have a ways to go. So be patient and be careful of making an assumption that because you've understood something, it means you've understood everything. No, you haven't. You've understood something. Keep going and you will understand more. And that's all very okay, and be willing to be in there for the long haul. I think it's that.
Thank you, sister. We have any questions? Yes. One of us, Cora, sister, has some reflections.
It's not good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, good morning. So it's not a question, Sister Denise. It's more of a reflection. First of all, thank you very much for that wonderful thought. So first, you said about whether you just sit in the corner or participate in what is going on in the world. So for me, I'd rather participate and make my voice heard. And one striking points also was how you manage the crossroads in your life, especially when you mention about culture, traits, and family. Just like me now, I am in my 60s. My husband is in the US. My kids are all over the country. And then, so technically, I'm staying alone in my place. But every time, like a small cough, they want me to go to the hospital. They wanted to be involved in what I'm doing. So for me, I really have to stand firm and go on with my life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Cora, for that reflection that you have right now. I'm sure Sister Denise has really touched our lives, has touched our intellects right now. There's one last question here. Sister Denise, do you think that dreams can help us find clarity in which direction to fly when we are at a crossroad? Again, do you think that dreams can help us find clarity in which direction to fly when we are at a crossroad? This is the last question.
Yes, well, I do actually. I give a lot of importance to dreams. It depends on the individual, and there are. You can say little dreams and big dreams, and there are occasions where, definitely for myself, I experience big dreams, which are strong pointers saying, okay, you have to pay attention to this dream because it has a big meaning for you. And this is quite common in certain people's lives. And so there is a lot of interest in dream interpretation because a dream is your subconscious talking to you. It can be your destiny talking to you. It can be a way in which the higher power communicates with you. If you have a dream that you don't remember, then it's probably not an important one. But if you have a dream that stays with you and that you never, ever, ever forget in your whole life, that would indicate that it's a very important one, and it requires action, and it can tell you, okay, your life is changing direction now, and you have to go this way. No ifs, ands, or buts, and don't resist, because if you do, I'll come back and push you in this direction. So there is something to it, and I think it depends very much on the individual. But I think dreams can help you quite a lot in understanding which way to go when you are at a crossroads. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sister Denise. That makes us think about dreams and really review what is really important. And perhaps if it gives us that direction, wonderful. If it gives us a direction towards that huge, gigantic power you were mentioning. And so I know there's a beginning and there's this ending that we have to do. May we ask you, Sister Denise, to share with us some meditation commentary as we wind up the program. And again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Sister Ellen, and thanks to everyone. It's been my great pleasure to be with all of you today. So let us step back, step deep inside, and go to the most profound part of our being. Let us become quiet and subtle. Let us shift to another dimension, an inner dimension, where everything feels lighter, less solid. You are coming close to the light. You become more still. And aware of yourself as light. You are light. You are something other than your physical appearance. You are a spiritual being. The spirit is powerful, indestructible. All past and future is there in the spirit. Memories of past and future. You are at a point in the timeline of eternity where the end and the beginning come together. You are at a point of letting go of many things and becoming once again like a clean sheet of paper for your destiny to be rewritten from the beginning. You're at a time of re-empowerment. You are at a time of the death of the old and the birth of something new and extraordinary. And the wheel of time and the circle of life are endless. You are also endless. You have passed through many identities. You have been in many places with many people. All those things are fading into the past. Something new, fresh, has emerged from that quiet chrysalis, and you are the new butterfly. And just emerged, getting used to a new sense of self, a new me has taken birth. Let your wings open up to reveal your colors and the patterns of your being in all its glory. Feel the warm sun of spiritual power consolidating you in your power. Standing at the crossroads, you have a sense of which road to take. And you go there. Let yourself gently return to your normal state of being. Om Shanti.
Thank you very much once again, Sister Denise, for such a heartwarming and really awakening time we had with you again. You know, every time we wind up, I find myself flying like the butterfly. And what's next is actually restoring myself into my original form as that one huge, gigantic power has really planned for me. And it's just wonderful to be drawing out the power from Him, that strength from Him. And at this point of time, I guess most of us here are now powered more to really get into that self and recognize that huge, gigantic power that each one of us can really draw from. Thank you very much once again, Sister Denise. It's been a wonderful, meaningful afternoon for us here in the Philippines. And I'm sure for those who are still starting the morning, it's a wonderful time to move on and on and on in eternity. Thank you. And at this juncture, I would just like to ask for the acknowledgements that we have right now to those who have helped us here to make this program come to its being. So we would like to thank Sister Denise, of course, first of all. And our appreciation goes to Sister Nerissa Marababol rather, who gave us the opening meditation. To our translators, there's Sister Eva, Brother Enrique, there's also Sister Patricia, and also, of course, we had the rest of those who were doing the Sister Solange, who did the Spanish translation, no, not the Spanish, but the French translation, and Sister Petra of the German translation. Thank you so much for making this event what it is, and really, we're all flying high. For those who joined us also in this special conversation, what's next? Thank you very much, those in Zoom and those who are in Facebook. And those who are face-to-face right now, would you like to see them? We're joined in by the Inner Space members. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. So till we meet again, there's going to be our next program, which is Saturday Conversations every second and last Saturday of every month. Thank you once again, and see you on our next episode. Thank you, Sister Denise. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, and lots of love to everyone. And thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.